The Old West, a legendary era defined by fearless cowboys, untamed landscapes, and tales of outlaws. Beyond the noisy saloons and high-noon duels, this time period holds mysteries that defy logic and endure through the ages. Beneath the gloss of romanticized stories lie secrets that continue to spark imagination and curiosity. Get ready to dive into 10 of the most intriguing enigmas of the Old West. These are stories where myth and reality intertwine, and where the echoes of lost secrets still resonate across the vast expanses of this iconic setting. Are you ready to uncover what the past tried to hide? Butch Cassidy. The story of Butch Cassidy, one of the most infamous outlaws of the Old West, gained widespread fame thanks to the movie adaptation starring Paul Newman and Robert Redford. In this well-known version, Cassidy and his partner, the Sundance Kid, fled to Bolivia after a spree of robberies in the 1890s brought them unwanted attention. There, according to the official narrative, the two met their end in a shootout with authorities. But is that really what happened? While iconic, this version isn't the only one. Cassidy's sister Lula claimed she saw and spoke with him long after his supposed death in 1908. According to her, Cassidy attended a family gathering in 1925, where he met with his siblings and even their father. Other acquaintances also reported running into him during this period. To add even more mystery, historical records suggest that the fatal shootout in Bolivia may have occurred while Cassidy and his gang were dividing the spoils of a heist. The fate of Butch Cassidy remains a captivating enigma, fueled by conflicting accounts and evidence that challenge the official story. Could the legend have lived far longer than we've been led to believe? The death of Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid is shrouded in mystery, and the official account of the shootout in Bolivia raises more questions than it answers. While two bodies were found after the gunfight, neither was conclusively identified as the infamous crime partners. Some believe Cassidy, in a desperate act, killed Sundance to prevent them from being captured. Other versions suggest Cassidy survived the confrontation, left his life of crime behind, and lived quietly for decades in places like Paraguay, Chile, or even Spokane, Washington. This theory gained traction when Bolivian President René Barrientos claimed the entire shootout story was fabricated. Adding to the intrigue, the Pinkerton Detective Agency, which pursued Cassidy and Sundance for years, believed the two were actually killed in Uruguay. Cassidy's sister Lula had her own story. She claimed he escaped and lived until 1930, eventually passing away from pneumonia in Washington. Each of these accounts adds another layer to one of the Old West's greatest mysteries. What really happened to Butch Cassidy? Chief Cochise. Cochise, one of the most iconic Apache leaders, stands out as a key figure in the complex history of conflicts between the indigenous peoples of North America and European settlers. However, much of his personal story remains shrouded in mystery. Little is known about his early life before the mid-19th century, the period when he emerged as the leader of the Chiricahua, an Apache group that lived in northern Mexico and southern Arizona. For years, Cochise led resistance efforts and battles against the encroachment of settlers, a relentless struggle that eventually led to the establishment of a reservation in the southeastern Chiricahua territory. He passed away in 1874, just 2 years after a peace agreement was reached, a peace he ironically had little time to experience. His burial site, hidden somewhere in the remote Dragoon Mountains, is cloaked in mystery and surrounded by legends. Only a select few of his contemporaries knew his resting place, and they never disclosed its location. Among the stories about his burial, one of the most famous claims that his horse and dog were sacrificed and buried alongside him. The intent was to prevent these loyal companions from reminding others of his absence, preserving Cochise's legacy away from prying eyes and perhaps unwanted interpretations. The mystery of the lost cement mine. The tales surrounding the discovery of the lost cement mine may differ, but they all share one captivating element: the promise of untold riches in gold. One popular version, documented in 1879, recounts that in 1857, two men traveling to California veered off from their caravan to rest by a creek. There, they stumbled upon an astonishing find, an incredibly rich gold deposit. One of the men, suspicious of the discovery's significance, decided to carry about 11 pounds of gold with him. However, during the journey, He fell gravely ill and had to use both the gold and a crude map of the location to pay for medical treatment upon reaching California. Another version, shared by Mark Twain, tells of 3 German brothers who, while fleeing an attack on their caravan, sought refuge in the mountains. During their escape, they accidentally came across gold deposits. Regardless of which origin story might be true, the mine gained legendary status, attracting countless fortune seekers. One of the few concrete accounts comes from Dr. Randall, who reportedly found a red rock filled with gold in a nearby area. Between 1869 and 1877, 2 men were seen returning annually to Stockton, California, bringing back astonishing amounts of gold. In the fall of 1877, one of them, on his deathbed, shared a secret with a priest. He revealed that he and his partner had mined gold near Mammoth Peak, then called Pumice Mountain, and over the years had extracted gold worth approximately $400,000. However, they never disclosed the mine's exact location, cleverly hiding it from other prospectors. While the lost cement mine remains a near mythical enigma, its legend fueled the gold rush and indirectly contributed to significant discoveries in Bodie, California, where over 28,000 kilograms of gold were eventually mined. Jean-Baptiste. In 1862, the community of Salt Lake City was shaken by a disturbing revelation that shattered its peace. Jean-Baptiste, the town's gravedigger, harbored a grim secret. He had been robbing the dead he buried. When the truth came out, hundreds of articles of clothing taken from corpses were discovered in his home. Outrage swept through the community, leaving them uncertain about how to punish someone who had committed such a revolting act. Brigham Young, the community's leader, sought to ease the congregation's pain by assuring them that at the time of resurrection, everyone would be properly clothed, even those stripped by Baptiste. The trial was swift and unforgiving. The punishment: exile to a remote island in the Great Salt Lake, a place from which he couldn't escape since he couldn't swim. Several men escorted him there, ensuring he had what he needed to survive the journey. But just a few weeks later, when shepherds visited the island to check on Baptiste, they discovered he had vanished. Many theories attempt to explain the fate of this enigmatic gravedigger. One of the darker hypotheses suggests that he died trying to escape. This idea is supported by the discovery of a human skull near the mouth of the Jordan River, and later a skeleton found with an iron ball and chains still attached to the bones. However, there's no confirmation that Baptiste was wearing these restraints when he was left on the island. Another theory speculates that he was clever enough to build a raft using pieces of his shack and calf hides, managing to reach the mainland. Some believe that after escaping, he boarded a train heading to California, while others argue he sought refuge in mining towns where strangers were less likely to be questioned. Years later, stories surfaced that only deepened the mystery. Some claimed Baptiste was eventually found, his ears cut off and his face scarred with words branding him as a grave robber. However, the truth behind these claims remains as murky as the final fate of Jean-Baptiste, a man whose name has become a legend cloaked in shadows and speculation. Tom Horn and the fate of Willie Nickel, a tale of chaos in the Old West. In the 1980s, Steve McQueen brought Tom Horn to life in the movie that bears his name, portraying a character as intriguing as he was controversial. Tom Horn was a man of two sides, sometimes enforcing the law, other times breaking it, depending on the situation. Let's go back to the 1890s when cattle ranching, once a gold mine, began facing tough times. The market was oversaturated, and in a desperate move, ranchers kept buying more cattle, sinking deeper into financial trouble. Instead of owning up to their mistakes, they found a scapegoat: cattle rustlers. To deal with the problem, they turned to men like Horn, ready to take justice into their own hands. Horn was ruthless. His method for dealing with rustlers was straightforward, and his reputation preceded him. There was no doubt he got the job done, but the cost, both moral and human, was steep. The story of Tom Horn is steeped in doubt, tragedy, and a fair share of mystery. He was executed for the murder of Willie Nickel, a 14-year-old boy. But the truth about what really happened on that fateful day has never been fully uncovered. No one has been able to definitively prove whether Horn was guilty or innocent. And to this day, the identity of the person who fired the shots that killed the young boy remains a mystery. Shortly after Willie's death, Tom Horn's notorious reputation caught the attention of U.S. Marshal Joe LaForce. Under the guise of recruiting Horn to help track down cattle rustlers, LaForce set up a meeting with him. According to reports, Horn was intoxicated during the encounter, and amid his boasting, he allegedly let slip some remarks that were interpreted as an indirect confession. That was enough to bring him to trial. Despite the defense's efforts to argue that all the evidence against Horn was purely circumstantial, the verdict was harsh: guilty. On November 20, 1903, Horn was hanged. However, nearly a century later, the case was revisited in a mock trial. The outcome? A significant amount of evidence suggested that Horn might have had nothing to do with the crime. Albert Fountain. Albert Fountain was a remarkable and multifaceted man whose life was filled with bold and challenging roles. He began his journey as a soldier in the Union Army, and later rose to prominence as a Texas state senator. Educated at the prestigious Columbia College in New York, Fountain also served as a judge, lawman, Texas lieutenant governor, and journalist. His firm stance and outspoken opinions inevitably earned him enemies along the way. In February 1896, Fountain mysteriously vanished while traveling from Lincoln, New Mexico to Mesilla, accompanied by his 8-year-old son, Henry. At the time, he was deeply involved in combating cattle rustlers, a role that put him in significant danger. Despite friends' constant warnings about his safety, Fountain seemed calm and unbothered by the looming threat. A mail carrier reported seeing Fountain and Henry being followed by a group of riders, but from that point on, nothing more was ever heard from them. No trace of Albert Fountain or his son was ever found, though their wagon was discovered with one chilling clue: a blood-stained handkerchief. Their disappearance became a gripping mystery, fueling speculation and theories that captured public interest for decades. Despite widespread outrage and investigations, no formal charges were ever filed. Among the theories, many believed accomplices of cattle rustlers were behind the crime. Others pointed to the infamous outlaw Black Jack Ketchum. Some even suspected Oliver Lee, a U.S. Marshal who also worked as a land developer. Lee was eventually brought to trial for Henry Fountain's disappearance but was acquitted, leaving countless questions unanswered. The hidden fortune of Henry Plummer. In 1863, the word background check didn't carry the weight it does today. If it had, the small town of Bannack, Montana might have thought twice before handing a sheriff's badge to Henry Plummer. On the surface, it seemed like a practical choice, but Plummer was anything but ordinary. He brought with him a dark past, tainted by murder accusations. Upon arriving in Bannack, he quickly took control of the law, or something resembling it. He handpicked his own men, though these deputies seemed to have a knack for crime rather than upholding justice. The only honest officer left from the previous administration didn't last long. Within a month, he met his end in a mysterious shootout that left more questions than answers. Just before landing in Bannack, Plummer added another twist to his already enigmatic life. He married Electa Bryan. The marriage might have seemed like the start of a quieter, more stable life. But with Plummer, calm was always just the calm before the storm. Henry Plummer had a knack for turning the sheriff's badge into the perfect cover for his true calling: crime. While the miners of Bannack, Montana toiled to unearth gold, Plummer used his authority to confiscate their riches under shady pretenses. He ran a tight operation. Once enough stolen gold was gathered to load a mule, he'd disappear with it, stashing it in hiding spots whose locations remain a mystery to this day. Stories about the whereabouts of these treasures have fueled legends for decades. Some say there's $200,000 in gold hidden near Birdtail Rock. Other rumors point to riches buried along a creek flowing into the Sun River. And that's not all. There are claims of $50,000 from a stagecoach robbery buried near Cottonwood Creek, and another $300,000 in gold tucked away somewhere near Cascade. But despite the efforts of treasure hunters and dreamers, none of it has ever been found. Plummer's career as sheriff was short but intense. In just over a year, his criminal network drew too much attention, and the vigilantes of Bannack decided it was time to act. On January 10, 1864, Plummer and his accomplices met their end at the gallows. With his death, he took the secrets of his hidden treasures to the grave, cementing his place in the mythology of the Old West, of the Queho. the man who became a legend for reasons many would rather forget. Born sometime in the 1880s to a Native American mother and an unknown father, Queho's life began under the weight of a mixed identity. In a time and place where belonging meant survival, Queho didn't fit in anywhere. The earliest stories about him were filled with violence and revenge. Some say it all started with the death of his brother Avat. The most popular version claims Queho killed his brother as retribution for the death of another man. That act sealed his fate. He left his home in the Colorado mountains and set out for Las Vegas, a young and growing city already brimming with promises and dangers. In turn of the century Las Vegas, Queho's story began to merge with the city's darker side. Alcohol consumed him, and his name quickly became synonymous with fear. He was the figure parents warned their children about before bed. If you don't behave, Queho will come for you. Over time, every unsolved crime, every unexplained murder was blamed on him, and thus the myth was born. But behind the whispered tales was a flesh-and-blood man, lurking in the shadows, dodging the weight of a $2,000 bounty on his head. In February 1940, a mysterious discovery near the Hoover Dam caught the public's attention. The mummified body of a man, most notably marked by an unusual double row of teeth. Authorities quickly concluded that these were the remains of Queho, the infamous and feared figure who had already become a staple of local legends. Queho's death, however, did not bring closure to his story. His corpse became part of a bizarre attraction created by a social group in Las Vegas, the Elks. They recreated the cave where his body was found, turning it into a macabre spectacle that both fascinated and unnerved visitors. But the display didn't last forever. Over the years, Queho's remains vanished, stolen and scattered. Although some fragments were eventually recovered, the final resting place of his bones remains a mystery, adding yet another layer to his enduring legend. This uncertainty about where Queho lies reflects the confusion surrounding his life itself. Was he truly responsible for the crimes attributed to him? Was he a victim of injustice? Or is his story a blend of truth and exaggeration, like so many myths of the American West? The enigma of Pancho Villa, more than a legend. Pancho Villa, or Francisco Villa, is a name that still resonates deeply in Mexican history. A man who started as an outlaw and, against all odds, rose to become a key military leader in the Mexican Revolution. His journey was marked by victories, controversies, and a charisma that has transcended generations. Even after retiring from his military and revolutionary days, Villa couldn't escape the shadow of his own legend. In 1923, he was living a quiet life as a farmer in the state of Chihuahua. But fate had a tragic end in store. He was brutally assassinated, leaving behind an aura of mystery and power. What happened after his death is just as intriguing as his life. His body was buried in the city of Hidalgo del Parral, but just 3 years later his grave was desecrated in an act of pure defilement. The most macabre detail? Villa's head was stolen, and to this day its whereabouts remain unknown. As if that weren't enough, Pancho Villa's granddaughter has shared accounts suggesting the desecration didn't stop with his head. Other parts of his body reportedly went missing when his remains were exhumed and relocated to the Monument to the Revolution in 1976. Little is certain about what really happened to Pancho Villa's remains, but the stories surrounding his grave are as fascinating as his life. After his head was stolen, it's said that only a few bones were left buried. However, some question whether those bones even belonged to the legendary revolutionary. One of the most intriguing theories involves Villa's widow. According to speculation, she orchestrated the removal of the rest of his body, fearing his grave would continue to be targeted by vandals. To throw off grave robbers, the decapitated body of an unidentified woman was allegedly buried anonymously in his place in the city of Parral. The mystery has only deepened over the years. There are reports that Villa's trigger finger, a symbol of his life as a fighter, was put up for sale in a pawn shop in El Paso, with an asking price of $9,500. Adding to the intrigue, bolder rumors claim his head ended up in the hands of the infamous Skull and Bones secret society at Yale University. The pirate ship in the desert. Picture this: the vast Colorado desert, an ocean of sand holding secrets from the past. Amid this dry expanse, a legend has captivated explorers for centuries: the tale of a lost Spanish galleon. While it seems improbable to find maritime remnants so far from the coast, the story gained traction in the late 19th century. In November 1870, a treasure hunter claimed to have located the mysterious ship, a discovery reported by the Los Angeles Star newspaper. Shortly after, another explorer, Charlie Klusker, also reported spotting the galleon in surprisingly good condition. His discovery was said to have occurred in early December of the same year. Despite these bold claims, no solid evidence ever emerged from expeditions in the area. Still, the myth persisted, fueled by rumors that the galleon was actually a pirate ship loaded with treasure of immeasurable value. But how could a ship end up in the desert? The answer might lie in the shifting geography of the region. The Salton Sink, a nearby geological depression, was at different times filled with water, forming a temporary lake. High in the San Felipe Mountains, ancient oyster beds have been discovered, a surprising clue that suggests these arid lands were once covered by deep waters. It's here that one of the desert's most fascinating legends takes root, the tale of a lost pirate ship. According to historical speculation, the galleon may have sailed into the Gulf of California and, under unknown circumstances, become stranded in the heart of the desert. If this truly happened, the tragedy spared no one, with the crew likely succumbing to the region's harsh conditions, leaving the ship at the mercy of time and sand. Despite the lack of concrete evidence, the idea of a Spanish galleon hidden within the Colorado desert continues to ignite the imagination of treasure hunters and fans of historical mysteries. The stories, varied and often exaggerated, paint a picture that's hard to resist. A ship filled with riches, buried in a place where there should be nothing but silence and dust. Subscribe to our channel and stay with us for more captivating stories that explore the mysteries and wonders the desert and history still have to reveal. After all, the past is never truly buried.